Hi, welcome back to Velshi and Rule. With just 5 days until midterms, we are watching a unique race in Texas where Democratic Congressman Beto O'Rourke is looking to unseat Republican Senator Ted Cruz.
MSNBC's Garrett Haake is in Raymondale near the border with Mexico, where O'Rourke just finished speaking. Garrett, from the outside, this race looks like it's tightening, but, we're sitting here in New York, and I know Beto is getting a lot of support and chatter outside of Texas. Take us there to where the actual voters are.
Yeah, Stephanie, Ali talked about a unique race. It is a unique race and a unique candidate. We just finished the rally here. There is the unique candidate, Beto O'Rourke. This is what happens after every rally. He comes outside afterwards, and the folks line up for a chance to get a selfie, get a picture, shake his hand. They line up, and they line up down the block, and we see this hundreds of people, sometimes thousands of people at some of these rallies. I mention this in part because it's difficult to square the energy we see at these events with the polls that show him down 5, 6, 7, 8 points. Texas is a big state. It's a heavily Republican state. We're in the Rio Grande Valley, where voter turnout has traditionally been abysmal. But if this candidate can excite people here, they believe that they can find voters who don't usually show up and who are not reflected in those polls, and that could ultimately make the difference.
Garrett, explain to me how turnout is working there. It does seem that Ted Cruz is polling a little higher, and Republican turnout is a little bit higher. You had this conversation with Beto O'Rourke the other day about how does he look at that stuff and still suggest that he might pull off a win there?
Yeah, so the bottom line is, in Texas, this is a more Republican state structurally. There are millions of more Republican voters. If everybody votes in Texas, every single registered voter in Texas votes, Republicans win. But what you're seeing here are Democratic voters, or voters who might be Democrats, independents, folks who are Republicans of the party of George Bush, perhaps not the party of Donald Trump. That's the coalition that the O'Rourke people think could drive them. And right now, the early vote numbers across the state are blowing the doors off of anything we have seen here in any other year. They're eclipsing presidential level years here for a state that O'Rourke often describes as a non-voting state, more than it is a red or a blue voting state. That is buoying. That gives them support. But also the reality here is the O'Rourke campaign, they don't employ a pollster. To some degree, they're flying blind a little bit here. We know that tons of people are voting, and we're not going to know till Tuesday when the votes get counted how that all broke out. But that is the theory behind this campaign here, is that they can win not just with the traditional Texas electorate, but they could bring people out like these folks in the Rio Grande Valley, which has been sort of the sleeping giant in Texas politics. They can turn all these folks into voters. They have a fighting chance.
The sleeping giant, a lot of mainly Hispanics who don't come out normally in those numbers. Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.